Hello, I'm Jonathan from Shooting Stuff. I'm here to show you the 3 integral safety systems built into every Glock pistol, making it one of the safest handguns on the market. Many people are initially perturbed by the lack of a traditional safety catch on a Glock pistol. The Glock, like most modern striker-fired pistols, is a fantastically safe firearm with integral safety systems that only allow the firearm to fire when the trigger is deliberately pressed. The first system sits on the trigger of the Glock pistol and doesn't allow the trigger to move to the rear until this lever, this little paddle on the front of the trigger, is depressed and moves away from the retaining part of the frame in the back. When I properly depress that paddle by deliberately pushing the trigger to the rear, I'm able to fire the pistol in normal fashion. The second internal safety is this firing pin block that prevents the striker from even approaching the primer until the trigger has been deliberately pulled. It's raised out of the way by the trigger mechanism, allowing the striker to move forward and strike the firing pin. This raised part of the trigger bar engages and pushes the firing pin block up, allowing the striker to move forward once the trigger is fully depressed. The third integral safety is this cross on the back of the trigger bar. There's a part of the cross that's in a narrow slot on the inside of the trigger mechanism housing that prevents this trigger bar from moving downwards until the trigger's moved all the way to the rear. As the trigger moves all the way to the rear, the rear part of the trigger bar engages the connector that forces it down, and by moving out of the narrow slot, only when the trigger is fully depressed can this move down, allowing the firing pin or the striker to move forward and strike the firing pin. As the trigger bar moves to the rear and engages the connector, it gets forced down, allowing the firing pin to move forward. If you look carefully, as the triggers move to the rear, the cross of the trigger bar will just pop into view as it moves down and out of the way once released by the narrow slot that prevents it from releasing the striker until the trigger's pulled all the way to the rear. As you can see, the Glock with 3 integral safety systems can only be fired by a deliberate pressing of the trigger, just like any other handgun. The Glock is a perfectly safe firearm, intended for all skill levels, from world-class shooters to novices, law enforcement, and security. Shooting Stuff caters to everybody's needs, giving you more time to shoot.